Sleep came slowly with calm awareness. She carried within her the lessons of care and resilience. She was alone in movement, but not in spirit. Her steps forward were choices grounded in understanding and courage. The stars above reminded her of continuity. Life moved forward, even in quiet moments. She knew the journey ahead would have challenges, but now she walked with purpose and hope. The road stretched endless, but she felt ready. Morning would come again, and she would rise with clarity. The encounter with the rancher would remain a quiet anchor. She understood that life could change gently and profoundly, and she would carry that understanding in every step from here on. The first light of morning spread softly over the horizon as she rose slowly from her resting place. Her body felt strong and her mind clear. The night had been long and calm, and she carried the quiet warmth inside her as she stretched and prepared for the day. She stepped outside and felt the cool air brush against her skin. The landscape was open and vast, and she noticed every detail with careful attention. Birds moved through the sky, and leaves whispered in the gentle wind. Everything seemed alive and patient, and she felt part of it. She began to walk down the road with a measured pace. Each step was deliberate and full of intention. She was no longer moving out of fear or uncertainty. Her body and mind had settled into a rhythm that felt natural and strong. The road stretched endlessly before her, but she no longer saw it as a burden. She saw a possibility in movement and the chance to choose her direction. The weight of loneliness that had pressed heavily in past days felt lighter now. She carried the memory of the ranch and the quiet care that had shifted something inside her. She walked. She thought about the people she had encountered in her life, ones who had hurt and the ones who had helped. She realized that every small act of noticing and kindness had left traces in her mind. Some had been subtle but powerful enough to change how she saw herself. The sun climbed higher in the sky and warmed her skin, found shade under a large tree, and paused to rest. She drank water from her bottle, slowly savoring each sipper. Thoughts moved over the past weeks and the changes she had felt. She remembered the road before the ranch, the endless steps that seemed to have no purpose, the fear that she carried in her chest every time she stopped. Now she felt movement without panic and strength without pressure. Her journey continued, and the landscape changed. Fields of green rose softly in patches. Hills and low valleys created gentle undulations. The air was rich with the smell of soil and growth. She felt her chest expand with each breath. She paused occasionally to observe her surroundings. A stream appeared, and she knelt by the water. Coolness refreshed her hands and face. She noticed small fish moving quickly in the clear water. She marveled at the simple life that continued without worry. The memories of the rancher stayed in her mind, the quiet patience and calm presence that had allowed her to rest and reflect. She realized how rare it was to be seen without judgment, how small gestures could change the course of thought and feeling. She thought about her own actions, how she could carry the lessons of care into her life. She understood that strength was not only in moving forward, but also in observing and listening. Sun moved across the sky, and she continued walking. Each mile felt different than before. Her steps were lighter, but full of purpose. The land seemed less intimidating and more inviting along the way. She met a few travelers at a distance. They nodded briefly but did not engage. She felt a sense of ease with solitude. Now being alone no longer carried fear or desperation. She paused to rest again under a tree. She took out a small snack and ate slowly. She noticed the wind through the leaves and listened to the sounds of distant animals. Every small detail seemed vivid and alive. Her mind wandered to the future. What did she want beyond the next mile or the next day? She realized she could plan without anxiety. She could choose a direction and move with confidence. The road curved gently, and she followed it without hesitation. The hills provided moments of shadow and relief from the sun. She appreciated the patterns of light and shade. The landscape felt like a companion rather than an obstacle. As the afternoon wore on, she felt a quiet hunger for rest. She found a soft patch of grass under a large tree. She lay down and let the warmth of the sun mix with the coolness of the shade. Her eyes closed briefly, and she allowed herself to feel gratitude. She reflected on the lessons of the past days being acknowledged and respected. had given her courage, small acts of patience and presence had transformed fear into calm. She realized she could now offer the same to herself and to others. She continued walking as the sun began to lower. The sky shifted into soft colors, shadows lengthened. Across the land she paused to admire the beauty of the horizon. Her journey was still long, but she felt ready. The road ahead was uncertain, but she had strength and clarity. She carried lessons of patience, observation, and kindness. She understood that every step she took was purposeful and approached, and she found a safe place to rest. She built a small fire and watched the stars emerge. The sky was clear and vast. She felt a sense of peace that had been missing for so long. She thought about the road she had walked and the path she would continue. Realized that life had shifted gently. One small encounter had created space for reflection and growth. Her body rested and her mind wandered through the possibilities. She knew that challenges would come, but she had learned resilience. She could face uncertainty with patience and awareness. The night deepened, and she allowed sleep to come. The warmth of the fire and the sounds of the land surrounded her. Her dreams were calm and reflective. She carried within her the lessons of kindness and quiet observation. She woke the next morning. She felt refreshed. Her body and mind were ready for the day ahead. Road waited, and she was prepared to move forward with intention. Each step was deliberate and full of awareness. She noticed every detail of the land and sky. She felt connected to the world and to herself. The past moments of fear and loneliness had transformed into strength and purposes. The day progressed. She walked steadily. The landscape continued to shift with hills and tree. Animals moved in the distance, and the wind carried soft sound. She observed everything with patience and gratitude. She reflected on her journey and the lessons she had learned. She understood the value of being seen and respected. She carried the memory of the rancher and the space he had given her. Those moments had changed her perception of herself and the world. The road continued, and she moved with confidence. Mile reinforced the awareness she had gained. She felt capable of facing whatever came next. The sun began to lower, and the sky filled with colors. She paused to watch. The change, the horizon seemed endless, but inviting. She realized that the journey was not just physical, but also within herself. Night fell, and she found a place to rest. She built a small fire and watched the stars. Quiet of the night reminded her of patience and presence. She felt gratitude for the journey and the lessons it had brought. Sleep came gently, and she rested with calm awareness. She knew the road ahead would continue to challenge and teach her, but she carried strength, clarity, and hope. The journey had transformed her, and she was ready to continue. The sky was soft with early morning light. As she rose from her resting place, her body felt rested and her mind was clear. She stretched slowly and took in the quiet sounds of the world around her. The air smelled fresh and cool, and the land lay open and inviting. She began walking down the road with calm steps. The past days of rest and reflection had given her strength. Each movement felt purposeful and full of awareness. The road stretched wide before her, but she no longer felt fear or doubt. She thought about the journey she had already made. Miles walked alone. The moments of fear and hesitation, the encounter with the rancher that had changed her perspective. She realized that small acts of attention and kindness had created lasting impact. Landscape shifted gently with rolling hills and patches of green. The sun moved slowly and warmed the earth. She paused occasionally to observe details she might have missed. Before birds flew overhead and the wind carried subtle scents of earth and growth, every step forward reminded her of resilience. She felt capable of facing the challenges that might come. The road was long, but she understood the value of pacing herself. Patience had become her ally in observation. Her guide. She found a stream and knelt beside it to drink and rest for a moment. Cool water refreshed her, and she watched small fish move in the clear water. The simple life around her reminded her that she was part of a larger world. The presence of living things made her feel connected and grounded. She walked on with renewed energy. Her thoughts wandered to the people she had known, the ones who had helped and the ones who had hurt. She understood that every encounter, whether good or bad, had shaped her understanding of herself and others. The sun rose higher, and the road curved gently through hills and open fields. She noticed the patterns of light and shadow. Land seemed alive and patient, and she felt part of its rhythm. Her steps were steady and aware. The road stretched wide and quiet under the open sky. Grass moved slowly with the wind, and the land felt endless say. Woman walked along the edge of the road with slow, careful steps. Her shoes were worn and her bag was light, but her thoughts were heavy. She had been walking for a long time, though time itself felt strange to her. Each step felt like it carried the weight of many days before this one. She did not look back because there was nothing behind her that called her any more. There was only the road and the hope that something might change. She had not planned to be here. Life had pushed her little by little until she found herself walking away from everything she knew. There was no big fight, no loud ending, just a quiet moment. When she realized she could not stay, the place she left behind was full of walls that felt too close and words that felt too sharp, so she chose the road because it was open and did not ask questions. The sun sat high, but did not feel warm to her. She wrapped her arms around herself as if holding on to something that was no longer there. Every few steps, she paused to breathe and listened. There were no voices, only wind and the sound of her own movement. The silence was loud in a way that made her feel small. She wondered if anyone in the world knew where she was at that moment. Her mind moved through memories like slow clouds, moments of kindness mixed with moments of hurt. Promises that were once spoken felt far away now. She remembered believing that life would settle into something steady, but it never did, and each change took something from her now. All she had was the road and the choice to keep moving. She told herself she was strong. She could survive things she never thought she could. Still, there were moments when fear rose up without warning. What if she never found a place to rest? What if this road only led to more empty days? She pushed those thoughts away and focused on the ground ahead. Dust rose gently with every step. Her legs ached, and her shoulders felt tight. She had not eaten much, and water was running low, but stopping felt worse than walking. As long as she moved forward, she felt alive. Standing still made the loneliness louder. She passed fences that seemed to go on forever behind them. Land waited quietly under the sky. She imagined animals moving slowly in the distance. The thought brought a strange comfort. Life was still happening somewhere. Even if she felt apart from it at times, she felt like she had become invisible. Had passed earlier without slowing down. Faces had glanced at her and then away. She did not blame them. Everyone had their own place to be, and their own worries. Still, each passing vehicle left a small ache in her chest. She wondered what she looked like to others, a woman alone on a road with a small bag and tired eyes. Did they think she was lost or broken? Did they think she chose this or had no choice at all? She did not have answers even for herself. The sky began to shift slightly as the day moved on. Light changed in a way that told her time was passing. She measured the hours by her steps and her breathing. She tried to remember the last time someone asked if she was okay. The memory felt distant and unclear. She stopped near a wooden post and rested for a moment. Her hands trembled as she wiped sweat from her face. She closed her eyes and listened to her heartbeat. It was steady and strong, and that gave her a little courage. She opened her eyes again and started walking. The road curved gently and disappeared into the distance. She felt both drawn to it and afraid of what it might hold. Every part of her wanted relief, not a miracle, just a pause from the struggle, a place to sit without feeling like she was in the way. As she walked, she made small promises to herself. She would keep going until night. If she had to, she would not let fear decide her steps. She would stay open to whatever came next. These thoughts helped her move forward. The land grew quieter as the day wore on. Even the wind seemed to slow. She felt like the only moving thing in a still picture. That feeling made her chest tighten. Being alone felt heavier than the bag on her shoulder. She remembered times when she had been surrounded by people, yet felt just as alone. That thought surprised her. Maybe being alone was not just about empty space. Maybe it was about not being seen or understood. She wondered if that could ever change. Far behind her, a low sound began to rise. First, she thought it was the wind. Then she realized it was different. It grew slowly louder, like something approaching. She did not turn around. She had learned not to expect anything from passing sounds. The noise continued, and the ground seemed to hum faintly still. She kept walking. Part of her did not want to look. Another part was tired of pretending nothing could change. Her steps slowed without her noticing. All sound came closer and dust lifted in the distance. She could feel it now, even without seeing it. Her heart beat faster in her shoulders. Tightened past experiences made her cautious. She told herself to stay calm and keep moving. The road no longer felt empty in the same way. Something was shifting, even if she did not yet know what it meant. She took another step, and then another. The air felt charged with a quiet tension. She was still alone, but not in the way she had been before. The sound slowed and matched her pace. She sensed a presence without turning her head. Her thoughts raced through warnings and hopes. She stayed silent and steady. Whatever was coming would reveal itself soon. The woman kept walking under the wide sky, unaware that this ordinary moment was about to change her path. She believed she was alone. She did not yet know that a single pause on a quiet road could open the door to something new. The sound behind her grew clearer and steadier. It was not rushing and not harsh. It felt careful, as if whoever was driving had noticed her long before she noticed them. Woman kept her eyes forward and her steps slow. Her body was tense, but her face stayed calm. She had learned how to hide fear even from herself. The vehicle moved closer and then slowed beside her. Dust lifted softly and then settled. For a moment there was only the sound of the engine resting. She felt the weight of being seen, and it made her chest tight. She did not turn right away. Her mind moved through memories of other stops, other moments that did not end well. Lay voice came from the open window. It was steady and low and not rush. The words were simple, asking if she was okay. There was no demand, no sharp edge, just a question that felt honest. She froze for a second, unsure how to respond. She finally turned her head just enough to see the truck. It was old and marked by work and time. Nothing about it felt flashy or threatening. Inside sat a man with a weathered face and calm eyes. He did not stare and did not push. He waited, like he understood. Waiting. She answered quietly that she was fine. The words came out of habit more than truth. He nodded slowly, as if he expected that answer. He said he had seen her walking for a while, said the road was long and the day was hot. His tone stayed respectful and light. She felt a mix of relief and caution. Being noticed felt strange after so much silence. She kept her bag close and her feet ready to move. He did not ask her to get in. He did not ask many questions. That alone made her feel a little safer. And spoke again, saying there was water in the truck. He offered it without leaning forward or opening the door. Just words left hanging in the air. She hesitated and looked at the bottle he pointed to. Her throat was dry and her body tired. Still she waited, weighing risk against need. She stepped closer, but kept her distance. He handed the bottle out slowly. Their hands did not touch. She thanked him softly and took a long drink. The water felt like relief spreading through her chest. She did not realize how thirsty she had been. He asked where she was headed. She paused because she did not really know. She said she was just moving forward. The answer sounded strange, even to her ears. He nodded again, like it made sense. Some people understood roads better than others. He told her there was a ranch a few miles ahead. Said the road after that turned rough and empty. His words were not a warning, just information. She listened carefully and felt the weight of choice. She could keep walking or accept help. The thought of sitting down even for a moment felt tempting. Her legs trembled now that she had stopped. He noticed but did not comment. Instead, he said he could give her a short ride, only as far as the next turn, if she wanted. No pressure and no expectation. She looked at the open road and then at the truck. Her heart beat loud in her ears. Trust had not come easy to her in a long time. Still, something about his patience eased her fear. He waited without moving, without pushing. She agreed quietly. He stepped out first and moved around. Slowly he opened the passenger door and stepped back. He kept space between them. That small act meant more than words. She climbed in and held her bag close. The seat was worn but clean. The truck smelled like earth and sun. He started the engine and pulled back onto the road. They drove without speaking for a while. The silence felt different from before. It was not empty, but calm. She watched the land pass by through the window fields, and fences moved like quiet stories. Her body slowly relaxed into the seat. After a time he spoke again. He talked about the land and the weather, about work that never really end. His voice carried no pride, just truth. She listened and felt grounded by ordinary words. She found herself speaking without planning till she shared small pieces of her story, not details, just feelings about being tired and unsure, about needing space to breathe. He listened without interrupting. He did not offer advice. He did not try to fix anything. He simply acknowledged what she said. Sometimes he nodded or said he understood that alone felt rare and valuable. The road passed under the tires steadily. She felt time slow in a good way. Her thoughts settled like dust after movement for the men. First time in days she did not feel rushed as they neared the turn he had mentioned. He slowed the truck. He reminded her she could get out here. Ride a little farther to the ranch, the choice was hers. He said. She looked ahead and then back at the road. Behind, she felt something shift inside her, not trust exactly, but openness. Asked if she could ride a little farther. He nodded without a smile or comment. The truck moved forward again. She leaned back and let out a breath she had been holding. She did not know what waited ahead, but she no longer felt invisible, and for now, that was enough. The truck moved deeper into the land where fences widened and houses disappeared. The road became quieter and the air felt softer. Woman rested her head against the seat and watched the sky through the window. Clouds moved slowly like they had nowhere else to be. She felt her breathing settle into a calm rhythm as the man drove with steady hands and eyes focused ahead. There was no rush in his movements. It felt like time followed his pace instead of the other way around. She noticed how comfortable he seemed with silence. That comfort slowly reached her too. After a while she spoke again without thinking much about it. She said she had not expected anyone to stop. She said most people never did. Her voice was low and honest. He answered that he believed everyone noticed more than they admitted. Some just did not know how to act on it. She thought about that for a moment. It felt true in a way she could not explain. She had felt seen many times, but rarely met halfway. The idea that someone noticed and chose to stop felt powerful. Land outside began to change. Green patches appeared, and the ground looked cared for, and animals could be seen far off, moving slowly. The sight made her smile without realizing it. Life looked simple from a distance. She wondered if it ever truly was. He pointed ahead and said they were close. The ranch appeared quietly with no signs or fences, announcing it. Buildings sat low against the land, like they belonged there. Nothing felt forced or loud. It felt honest and lived in. He parked the truck and turned off the engine. For a moment neither of them moved. The quiet felt respectful, not awkward. She waited, unsure of what came next. He finally spoke, saying she could rest for a bit. No obligation and no questions. They stepped out into the open air. The ground felt solid under her feet. Her legs were stiff, but steady. He walked ahead slowly, making sure she followed at her own pace. He did not rush her or look back too often. Inside one of the buildings, the air was cool and clean. He offered her a seat and some food. Nothing fancy, just simple and warm. She hesitated, but hunger answered for her. She ate slowly, feeling strength return bit by bit as she ate. He stayed busy nearby. He gave her space while still being present. That balance made her feel respected. She realized how rare that feeling had become later. She spoke about where she had come from, not details, just the weight of leaving. She spoke about feeling like she took up too much space, like she was always in the way. The words surprised her as they came out. He listened quietly, then said something simple. He said no one was too much for wanting peace. The words landed deep inside her. She felt her eyes grow heavy with feeling, but she did not cry. She looked around the room. Everything had a place and purpose. Nothing seemed wasted or rushed. She imagined what it would feel like to belong somewhere like this. Avon, for a short while, he told her. She could stay the night if she needed. There was no expectation beyond rest. She could leave in the morning or later. The choice was her searing. That eased something tight inside. Hers. The sun lowered outside. The light changed. Stratos stretched across the land. She stood near the door, watching the day soften. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe enough to pause. She thought about the road she had been walking. It felt far away now, even though it was not. She realized how quickly life could change direction, not with big plans, but with one small decision. When night came, she lay down on a simple bed. Quiet wrapped around her like a blanket. She listened to sounds of the land settling her body, relaxed fully at last, before sleep took her. She thought about what came next. She did not have answers, and that was okay for now. She had rest and space. She had been seen and heard, and that was more than she had expected outside. The ranch rested under the stars inside. She slept with a calm. She had almost forgotten the road would still be there in the morning, but tonight she allowed herself to stay. Morning light filtered through simple curtains. She woke slowly and felt the quiet warmth of the room. The bed had held her body in a way that reminded her what rest felt like. She stretched carefully and sat up. For the first time in days, she did not feel the ache of constant motion. The man had already started moving about the ranch. She could hear soft steps and the sound of doors opening and closing. Everything felt alive without being rushed. Ranch moved in its own rhythm, and she felt invited to watch without pressure. She walked outside and breathed deeply. The air smelled of earth and growing things. Animals moved slowly in the distance, and the sun touched the land gently. It felt connected to the space in a quiet way that surprised her. He greeted her without expectations. A nod and a small word acknowledging her presence. She responded with a smile and a nod of her on it. Felt natural to exchange small gestures. Without needing words, they went about small tasks together. She helped feed some animals and learned how to lift hay without straining. He demonstrated with patience and clarity. She noticed that he never rushed or spoke harshly. The work was steady and honest. Between tasks, she spoke more freely, not confessions but reflections. She talked about fear and loneliness. He listened without interruption. His quiet presence made her feel grounded. She realized how rare it was to be in a space where her feelings mattered without judgment. She had spent so long hiding that even small acts of acknowledgement felt large. She felt her chest open a little and her heart lightened. They took a break and sat on the porch watching the sun rise higher. She sipped water and felt the warmth spread through her body. Quiet moments between words felt comforting. She noticed that she could just be without thinking about everything she lacked. She told him about the road she had traveled, not the miles, but the emotions that came with walking alone, the fear of being unseen, the weight of carrying herself through silence. He nodded and said it took courage to keep moving, even when invisible. The words sank in slowly. For so long she had measured herself against judgment and expectation. Here she measured herself against her own presence and endurance. The difference felt freeing. He invited her to help with more work on the land. She agreed, and they moved together through tasks that required focus. The rhythm of labor gave her body and mind purpose. She realized that action without pressure could heal in ways rest alone could not. As the day wore on, they shared small meals. He made no comment about her story or her past. He simply offered sustenance and company. She noticed that kindness did not always need explanations. She began to imagine what it would feel like to belong somewhere like this, even temporarily. A place where she could contribute without fear or expectation. The thought, it was unfamiliar but welcome. Later, she walked along the edge of the property alone for a moment. Land stretched out under the open sky. She thought about the road she had walked and the people she had passed. The memory was heavy and light at the same time. She realized how far she had come in a short time. The rancher found her eventually, but did not intrude. He simply stood nearby, giving her space. They shared no words and no need for them. The presence of another human being without demand felt extraordinary. She returned to the house, and they continued small tasks. Every movement felt measured and deliberate. She noticed how calm she felt compared to walking endlessly the day before. She realized strength could come from gentleness as well. As persistence evening approached and the sky shifted into colors she rarely noticed, she paused to watch the change and felt her breath slow. Land held a quiet dignity that touched something inside her. She spoke again about not feeling worthy of attention or care. He listened as he worked without comment. His silence said more than words could. He acknowledged her without judgment, without advice. Simple act built a quiet trust inside her. She felt herself opening to the possibility that she could be seen without being taken apart. She thought about the life she had left behind. She thought about the choices she still had. Night fell slowly, and the ranch grew quiet. The animals rested, and the land seemed to exhale. She prepared for bed, feeling steady in a way She had not in a long time. She lay down and considered the days she had done small acts that mattered, and had been witnessed. She had spoken without fear of ridicule and had been heard. The world felt a little less lonely. Outside, the sky was full of stars. She could hear the soft hum of the ranch at night. She realized that life could be patient and caring, that sometimes the simplest moments could teach the most about strength and presence. She fell asleep knowing that she had found a space to breathe and to grow. Morning arrived with gentle light spilling over the land. She stretched and rose from the bed. With a quiet sense of purpose, the weight of yesterday had eased into something manageable. She felt calm but aware of the choices ahead. The ranch stirred slowly with soft sounds of life. Animals moved in the distance, and the wind carried earthy scent. She stepped outside and inhaled the air deeply. It felt like a new day, not just another continuation of walking. The man moved through his morning routine without hurry. He acknowledged her presence with simple gestures. No words were necessary to feel the warmth of human recognitions. She returned the gestures and felt a small smile formed naturally. They worked together through tasks that required attention and care. She lifted, sorted, and moved without rush. Each action gave her a sense of belonging and usefulness. She noticed how her body responded to work done in rhythm rather than fear between tasks. They shared moments of quiet conversation. She spoke about hopes she had almost forgotten. The idea of future steps without constant fear seemed possible. He listened without interruption and without judgment. His presence allowed her to consider decisions without pressure. She thought about leaving the ranch and what that would mean. Not fear, but awareness. The road would call again, but she felt stronger than before. Her mind felt clearer and her heart steadier. As the day unfolded, she began to consider what she wanted beyond this place. She realized she could move forward with intention, not just with escape. She felt capable of choosing her own direction. They shared small meals together, simple food and quiet company. She understood that trust could exist without ceremony or declaration, that human connection could be patient and steady. Afternoon came, and she walked the land alone. Briefly, she watched the sun move over fields and fences. She felt a calm presence within herself. The fear of being unseen had diminished. She returned to help with chores and tasks. Every action reinforced a sense of agency. She felt strength in contribution and connections. Small choices created larger understanding about herself. Evening approached and the sky became painted with soft colors. She paused to watch the change and felt gratitude for a day lived fully, not perfect, but real and meaningful. They sat quietly together on the porch as the land settled. No words were needed to acknowledge the bond formed through presence and care. She realized that help could be offered without expectation, that kindness could exist in simple actions. The night arrived and the stars appeared above. She prepared for rest with a sense of completeness. Road she had walked felt less heavy. Now her steps could be chosen, not forced by circumstance. She reflected on the journey from isolation to recognition. She had been alone, but now understood the value of small acts of attention. One moment of noticing had begun a change within her. The rancher did not seek credit or recognition for his actions. His simple patience and presence had provided space for reflection. She felt gratitude without dependence. Before sleep, she looked around the room. Though land outside was quiet under starlight, inside she felt steady and centered. Her heart carried calm awareness. She thought about leaving the next day. The road would still be there, but she had gained courage and clarity. She had learned that one encounter could shift perspective. Night deepened, and she felt at peace. Her mind settled, and her body rested. She knew that moving forward would take effort, but now she had strength outside. The ranch, the land, slept quietly inside. She lay down feeling grounded. Journey had changed her. She realized that she was not invisible. She had been seen and acknowledged. She drifted into sleep with a sense of hope and purpose. The road and the future awaited, but she now carried calm and courage. One small encounter had reminded her of human kindness and resilience. She understood that life could move gently and still transform. Her path the night held quiet wisdom, and she felt ready to continue, not lost and not alone. She carried within her the experience of being witnessed and supported. That small moment of attention would guide her steps from here on. The morning was calm, and the sky stretched wide with soft light. She rose slowly, feeling the steady weight of sleep leave her body. The night had been quiet and restorative. She moved carefully through the small house, gathering her few belongings. She looked around at the space that had offered her rest and care. Every item held simple purpose and quiet presence. She felt gratitude, but also readiness to move forward. The road waited, and she was no longer afraid to face it outside the ranch. She paused and breathed deeply. The air smelled of earth and growing things. The animals moved slowly in the distance. The wind carried sounds of life that felt steady and reliable. She felt connected to the land and the space she had occupied. The man had already started his morning routine. He nodded as she approached. No words were needed to convey understanding and support. She returned the nod and felt a small sense of reassurance. She walked slowly toward the road she had been following before she met him. Every step felt different now. She was not moving out of fear or desperation. She was moving with intention and awareness. Her mind reflected on the days she had spent at the ranch. How simple kindness and presence could create space for thought and clarity. She realized she had been noticed and acknowledged in a way that mattered. Her confidence grew quietly. The road stretched ahead with its familiar emptiness, but she no longer felt alone in the world. She carried within her the quiet knowledge that human attention and care could exist, that life could shift even in small moments. As she walked, she remembered the moment she had hesitated to trust the way fear had held her back for so long. Now she felt strength in taking deliberate steps. Movement forward was a choice, not an escape. The landscape changed gradually as she walked. Hills rose softly and green patches appeared among the dry grass. She noticed details she had missed before: the colors of the sky, the patterns of light on the ground. She allowed herself to enjoy the beauty without guilt or distraction. She remembered the rancher and the way he had given her space. How simple actions like listening and offering care had changed her perspective. She carried that memory as a model for how people could impact each other without demanding or expecting. Throughout the day, she encountered small challenges, rough patches of road, stones, and uneven ground. She met other travelers at a distance but did not interact much. Her sense of self had strengthened, and she walked with quiet assurance, reflected on the fear that had accompanied her on previous journeys, how isolation had weighed heavily on her mind and body. Now she felt resilience growing inside her. Each step was a reminder of endurance and capability. She paused occasionally to rest and observe. Birds flew overhead and the wind whispered through the trees. The land seemed alive and patient. She felt herself part of it without needing to dominate or conquer. By afternoon, the sun had moved high and the heat grew. She adjusted her pace and sought shade under sparse trees. Her water supply was modest but manageable. Considered how preparation and awareness had become her allies. She thought about the possibility of encountering kindness again. The encounter at the ranch had opened her eyes to unexpected help. She realized that connections could form even briefly and still leave lasting impact. Her steps continued steadily. Every mile felt measured and purposeful. She thought about the people she had left behind, not with bitterness but with understanding. Life moves forward, and so must she. Even in approached and the sky shifted in soft colors. She paused to watch the horizon. The vast openness reminded her of choice and possibility. The road continued ahead, and she felt ready to embrace it. She reflected on the lessons of the past days. Being seen and acknowledged gave strength. Small acts of kindness created space for growth even in solitude. She could find resilience and direction. As night fell, she found a safe place to rest. Not perfect, but suitable. She lit a small fire and watched the stars. The sounds of nature surrounded her in quiet harmony. She considered how the road she traveled was more than physical. It was a journey of inner discovery. The patience of others had taught her about patience with herself. Encounter at the ranch had shown her the value of connection. She paused to rest under a tree and considered her future. The journey had taught her about resilience, patience, and kindness. She realized that she could carry these lessons forward into her life, not just in movement but in thought and action. She continued walking as the day wore on. Every step felt deliberate. The road no longer seemed endless, but filled with opportunities. She felt capable of choosing direction and creating her path. She reflected on the encounter with the rancher, how he had offered space without pressure, how simple patience had allowed her to regain clarity and strength. She understood that true help could be given without expectation. She walked through fields and valleys, observing the world around her. Every detail seemed vivid and alive. The wind through the trees, the movement of animals, the colors of the sky, each element reinforced her sense of presence and awareness. She paused by a small hill to rest, and Etherland was quiet and still. She felt calm and grounded. The journey had taught her that rest was as important as movement. As afternoon approached, she continued her walk. Her steps were light but full of intention. The road brought both challenge and beauty. She embraced both without fear. She noticed other travelers at a distance and observed them briefly, did not interact, but felt a sense of community and shared movement. Avon's solitude carried connection. When she observed with awareness, she walked through changing landscapes. Trees and open fields created patterns of light and shadowed. The beauty of the land reminded her of the importance of observation and presence. Each step was a choice and a lesson. As evening approached, she found a safe spot to rest. She built a small fire and watched the sun set. The sky filled with colors, and the air cooled. She felt calm and reflective. She thought about the journey so far, the loneliness she had felt, the fear, the encounters that shifted her perspective. The road had taught her patience, awareness, and resilience. She understood that life could be transformed by small moments of care and attention. She considered the path ahead. Road would continue to be challenging, but she felt prepared to face it with strength and clarity. Her journey had become more than movement. It was a lesson in observation, reflection, and human connection. Night came, and the sky filled with stars. She lay near the fire and allowed herself to rest. The quiet of the land, the warmth of the fire, and the sounds of life surrounded her. She felt grounded and calm. Her thoughts reflected on the lessons she had learned. Being seen, acknowledged, and given space had changed her perspective. She understood the value of patience, observation, and kindness. These lessons would guide her beyond the road. Sleep came gently, and she rested fully. The journey would continue, but she now carried strength and awareness. The road ahead was long, but she was capable. Her steps were deliberate and full of intention. Morning would arrive again, and she would rise with calm clarity. Encounter with the rancher, the road walked alone, and the lessons of observation and resilience would remain with her. She was ready to move forward with awareness, courage, and hope. The land around her slept quietly under the stars inside her mind. She carried calm and reflection. Her journey was not just about distance traveled, but about growth, understanding, and human connection. She felt ready to face the road with purpose and clarity.